Hey, what's up? This is Tim with Studio4Media.com, and thanks again for tuning in to another tutorial inside of Maya. We're going to be taking a look at creating some crop circles inside of a wheat field today using PaintFX. It's going to be a really cool technique and fun tutorial. If you guys don't know, this is our website right here, Studio4Media.com. If you enjoy these tutorials, these free tutorials, please consider supporting us through this website so we can continue to bring you awesome tutorials. Also, we have all of our free tutorials on here and all of our product files, so just go to free tutorials right there. The product files for this will be available on our blog for this tutorial. It's not up there yet because I haven't posted it, but it will be available there. And then also take a look at the tutorials we have available for our members up here. And there's a whole bunch of tutorials and models and everything that we show you a preview of, so you can get an idea of what you'll be getting if you subscribe. If you subscribe, you only have to pay $50 for the entire year, and that gets you access to all of our tutorials, all of our models, and we add new content every single month. And it's really professional training. Or you could just go ahead and go with the $30, and that gets you access to all of our tutorials and product files. So it's a really good deal. Please consider supporting us through that if you enjoy these tutorials. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So this is our crop circles product file. If you download the product files, it's under crop circles start. If you don't want to download it, it's fine. I'll just show you what I have set up right now. All I have is a bunch of curves, and they're lined out in this manner. So these are just curves here. And you can create your own crop circles, or you can create your own whatever you want and use this technique. It's going to be really cool. So, alright, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and select our crop circles, number 1 in the outliner, and shift select down to number 11. Okay, so we have all of them selected. And then make sure we're in our rendering tab. Go to our PaintFX here, go down to Curve Utilities, and we're going to attach brush to curves. So we just attached the default brush to our curves, which is going to be fine for what we're using it for. And now if we back up to the very front of our outliner, you're going to see here that we have all these individual strokes. So we're going to want to go ahead and select all those. So stroke number 1, shift select 11, hit Control G on the keyboard, Command G if you're on Mac, and we'll rename this strokes. So we have all of our strokes under here, and they're all grouped up now. Okay, let's go ahead and select our strokes now. Shift select them, and take a look in our channel box here at some of the options we have. Let's go down to our max clip, and we're going to set this to a value of 0. And you can notice now that these disappear. And make sure we're on frame 1 right here. And we'll right click on our max clip and go to key selected. So we keyed it at a value of 0, so there's no PaintFX showing right now. Then we'll go all the way to the end at 120. And if you're not set to 120, you can do it right here. Just set your frames to 120. And we'll turn up our max clip to 1, and now that's completely on. And we'll key the selected again, right click, say key selected, and now you'll see that this pretty much animates on. So our curves are now animating on that paint effect. Now you're going to notice here this is a little bit choppy, just kind of, goes across in a choppy manner, and we want it to be a little bit smoother than that. So if we select our strokes again, in the channel box, scroll down to our sample density. We can turn that up to, say, a value of 10, and let's see what that looks like. So that already is way better. You can turn that up a little bit more if you want. What that's doing is actually increasing the stroke itself, the topology. So the more you increase it, the higher resolution it is. So just be careful, you don't want to go overboard. But that makes it a lot smoother, and that looks good for me. Alright, so now we basically got our crop circle animating. Looks good. Let's go ahead and take a look at our size. So I want this to be a little bit bigger. They're kind of thin right now. So if I select, let me select all my strokes and go to PaintFX. I'm going to say share one brush. So now if I make a change to just one of these strokes, it's going to change all of them. We'll go in here to our attribute editor and go to brush 12. That's going to be our settings. And we'll go to our brush profile and turn our width up to, say, a value of 0.2. No, that's a little bit too big. Let's do 0.1. 0.1. Yeah, that's a little bit better. You can, maybe 0.13, a little bit thicker. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. 0.13. So this looks pretty good if we play this back. Got a pretty thick lines going through here. I like it. Now one thing you notice is that these are all kind of going in unison. Like these are at the exact same point in time. These are at the exact same point in time. So if we want to change that up, all we have to do really is just take our curves and let's just like rotate this one a little bit to like there. This one here. I guess I could have done this before I gave you guys the product file, but now you'll know if you're making your own. And we'll just kind of randomize where this is at. So now when we play this back, they all kind of start in a different area and it looks a lot better. So, a little tip for you there. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's go over some render settings here because we're going to render this out and then we're going to import the video file back into Maya under a different scene. So, right now, let's go ahead and make sure that we have our Maya software selected. And if you're using this this product file, the crop circle start product file, most of this will probably already be done for you, but I'm going to go over it just so you know why we're doing it. So go under your Maya software tab and make sure your quality is set to production quality. We'll just use the default there. And make sure you scroll down to Paint Effects, and this oversample needs to be turned on. I think the default is off, so make sure that's turned on, and then the rest of it we'll just use the default. Go back to common here, and we'll change our image format. Yeah, that's fine. You want name dot number sign dot extension ext. Frame padding at 1 is fine. Make sure your start frame is 1 and your end frame is 120 because we go to 120 there. Frame 1, yeah, by frame, that's fine. You can render from the top view or from the perspective view as long as your perspective view is on the top. Okay. And then we'll use the default 1K square, which is good. And that looks fine. Now one more thing we want to make sure of is that we have our, right now if we render this out, it's just black. We can't see the actual strokes because the strokes are black. And when we import this back in, Maya is going to use the information, and we want it to make sure it's white on black, so it's really easy for Maya to see where these strokes are at. Okay, so let's go ahead and if we're going to render it from our perspective view, make sure we're on the top as much as we can be. Okay, and then we'll also open up our channel box, select our perspective camera, and go down here to environment. Okay, we'll scroll down to environment in our attribute editor. The background color right now is set to black. We'll change that to white. And now, if we render this out, there we go. We have our white on black, just the way Maya likes it. And this is looking really good. One thing I don't like as I'm just looking at this, I don't like how this intersects right there. So I'm going to take this curve and just move it down. And let's go ahead and make sure we're moving the actual curve, not the stroke. Move it down just so it kind of intersects those two. And let's see if I like that a little bit better. Render this out and do a test render, make sure it looks good, everything's fitting in frame, and I like that a lot better. So kind of intersecting both of those circles and then up here as well. So there we go. This part is pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and batch render this out. So just go under render, batch render. It might take a little bit of time, so I'm going to do this, pause the video, come back, and we'll get started with the next set. Okay, so we have our scene rendered out here, and this is going to be available in the product file, so make sure you download that. We have it all the way from scene 1 to frame 120, and it's just an IFF, which is a file type that Maya reads. So that's all done. Go ahead and open up the Wheatfield start in your project files, and if you don't have the product files, if you didn't download it, all I have is a plane right here. It's just a polyplane, okay, with a little bit of displacement on it to make it look kind of like a field. Okay. So with this opened up, we're going to go ahead and select our field, and we're going to go under the Fur tab, and we're just going to use a preset here. We're just going to use a grass preset. Just click on that, and it'll apply it there. So in our attribute editor under grass 1, our grass 1 node, let's scroll down here and make some changes. So let's go ahead and start with the density. Let's crank this up quite a bit to a value of 350,000. So 350 and then 3 more zeros after that. I'll change our global scale to a value of 2. And let's start changing our colors here. Our base color will make a dark brown, and our tip color will make a little bit of a lighter, probably even lighter than this, kind of like a light yellow. Okay, so there's our base color is at the bottom. It's going to be dark brown. At the tip, it's going to be that wheat color. All right, and then let's also change our length to a value of 3 and our baldness to a value of 0.8. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and render all this under the mental ray tab, so you can switch that to mental ray. And I have my image size set to 640 by 480. We're going to need to remember that later. So let me make sure something is okay. So we're good to go. This looks pretty good. If I render this out right now, it will take a little bit of time to render, because anytime you deal with fur or hair or any of that stuff, it takes time to render. But if you rendered it out right now, you get something similar to this. Okay, so you got that dark brown. It just looks like some fur or some grass, but it's definitely a good place to start. So we'll start here, and now we need to attach our textured sequence to this wheat field. So how we do that is, let's go ahead and we can have our fur feedback node now. So you can see we have this, and if we select grass 1 under our fur feedback node, we can make changes to it this way. So let's go ahead and scroll down to our length attribute. Okay, we're going to right click on that and say create new texture. And from there we have a whole bunch of options, but we want to select it file, but we want to right click file, and we want to create texture. Okay, and now we have an option of opening up an image name. We'll select open, and all you got to do is find those image sequences with the crop circles, and you want to select the last frame. So 120 is the last frame that we have. So we'll select that, hit OK, and we want to make sure we scroll down and use or check this box off. Alpha is luminance. So now we're good to go. This is all set up how we want it. Okay, but you'll notice if we render this back out, it actually won't have our crop circles in our wheat field because it hasn't been applied yet. So we have this done, but there's another step we have to do. We have to go back to our grass 1 node, okay, and we have to bake this out. So under our bake attributes, the default is all. Just go ahead and set that to length, and then we want to change our map width and height to the same value as our image size here. So we want to have it be 640 by 480. And let's make sure that's actually changing it. 640 by 480. And that looks good. Now let's go ahead and bake this out. Now that we've baked it out, if we render this out, we're going to notice that we have change here. But you also noticed that the length of this wheat field has actually gone down overall. And that's because it's using our image over the entirety of the plane, and the whole length has gone down. So we need to compensate for that. And we can compensate for that by scrolling down, and under the Details tab, you'll see a value called length, or another tab called length, and an option called Map Multiplier. This is going to just multiply everything that's on our map, and we'll set that up to a value of 3. And there you see our length has come back now, and it's looking like it was before we applied our texture. So this is going great, looking good. Now if we render this out right now, and I'll just render it out a little bit so you can see, it does take some time to render, but at least you'll see we have now some indentations in our wheat field. You can see there's a line right there. You can see the beginning of a circle right there. So we definitely have our indentation in the wheat field, which is exactly what we want. So now our texture is working properly with the grass file node, and everything looks good. But the next step we need to do is have our animation be applied to this wheat field. So that way it's not just a static crop circle, it actually animates on. Okay, so this is looking good. Let's go ahead and go to our file node, so file 1 node. Scroll down here, and we want to check this box, use image sequence. Select this, and now you can see our sample is white because the very first frame is white, and we're using frame number 1. If we scroll through, you can see it changes, and that's our animation now. So very good. But you notice that nothing happens on our wheat field. If I was to render it out here on frame 1, which would be nothing, I will get an indentation there. And I'll just render this out enough to show you that there is, see that indentation right there. So what we need to do is we need to rebake this out, okay? Because we made some changes. So let's go back up to our bake attribute, and we just need to rebake this out. So length, that looks good. And as we bake this, you're going to notice that our timer is changing now. It's counting up, and it's just going through our animation and applying it to our grass node. Now you're not going to notice anything right away, but here in a second, as we scrub through, you'll see a little bit of indentations in the grass, and then we're going to do a test render to make sure everything's working properly. Alright, so as this is finishing up, we'll scrub through here and see if it's working. So you can see right now we have no indentations in our grass. As we scroll through, some of them start to disappear. Now obviously it's impossible to tell in our viewport what the indentations are, but let's go to like frame, I don't know, 53 or somewhere in the middle here, and re-render this back out. And since this is in the middle of the animation, we should see just about half of the things, half of the circles made, excuse me, half of the lines drawn, all that stuff. So we can see here, okay, so yeah, we have our circles starting here, but they're not all the way finished. And we have our lines starting over here, but not all the way done. So this is looking great. You can notice that this is right in the middle of our animation. So this is looking really good. And that means that it's pretty much done. As if we were to batch render this back out, it would basically just have our indentations going in our crop circle, or in our wheat field, and it look really good. But you'll notice here, this actually isn't that good of a view. I maybe want to get more of a top view like this to really see how deep those indentations go. So let's see if that makes a difference when we render it out. Also, oh wait, we gotta make sure we're at the end frame if you want to see the actual crop circles in your wheat field. Also, something we can do in our render settings, because if you notice right now, it's a little bit flat, kind of matte. It doesn't look very good. It's kind of, the colors are kind of off, but we can change that here in a second. So this is looking really good. I like this camera angle because you can see the indentations more, but you still have those, grass overlaying the indentation, so it looks pretty realistic. Yeah, I like this angle a lot. I'm gonna save this image, let this render out all the way. But as you notice, it's just kind of flat and matte, maybe a little bit too bright, too overexposed because of our tip color here. But what we can do to change this, to make it look a lot more realistic, is we'll just go ahead and turn on ray tracing in our render settings, and that'll allow it to have those shadows and look a lot more realistic. So I'm gonna let this finish rendering out and then save it, and then show you the difference between this and a ray trace. So here's this one, and let's just go ahead and go into our render options, and under quality, turn ray tracing on. Now this is going to render a lot slower because we have shadows now turned on, but you're going to notice a difference right away as it begins to render. And I'm not going to let it render out all the way because it will take a long time, but you're going to notice as it starts that the grass is a lot darker. Even here, you got a lot more contrast, and it looks a lot better. So I would recommend rendering once you're happy with the camera angle and everything. Maybe you'll do like a camera animation, which would be really cool. Just kind of slow pan up would be really awesome. But once you're happy with all that and you're finished with the test renders, then I would turn on the ray tracing and render it out that way, because that way you could make sure you have it how you want it first without taking up too much render time. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Hopefully you guys learned something. This is a really fun technique. You could do a lot of things with it. You could make all different types of designs, and you could change the colors around to make it look like it actually is, in grass or whatever else. Really cool. You could even apply some, different effects to the actual wheat field. You can apply some wind to make it just, blow in the wind, make it look even more realistic. So many different options you have with this type of effect. But hopefully you guys learned something. And really enjoyed this tutorial. So thanks a lot. Be sure to go ahead and check out studio4media.com and look at all the other tutorials we have available there. If you like this tutorial and you enjoy these teachings, then please consider supporting us that way. So thanks a lot, guys. We will see you on the next one.